Hey guys, it's Chris. From possessed dolls to a vase that brings death upon its owner, here are 8 cursed objects that actually exist. Number 8. Annabelle the Possessed Doll. If you like creepy things, you've perhaps already heard of this doll. Most of you have most likely even seen the movies based on the doll named Annabelle. But not many of us know the true story behind this frightening, cursed object. Annabelle was originally found in an antique shop in 1970 by a mother who gave it to her daughter Donna. It of course looks extremely harmless, but that's when strange things started to happen. Over time, the doll started appearing in different rooms when Donna was positive that she did not move it. One time, she even found it standing on its own 2 legs without any support. Then came the little notes and drops of blood on her dress. The notes read things like, "Help us," but no one could figure out where they were coming from. Since it continued to happen, Donna called in some paranormal investigators who figured out that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named, you guessed it, Annabelle Higgins. They all agreed that Annabelle could stay with them upon learning the story behind her murder. After all, they were trying to be compassionate, but that's when things got worse. The doll began attacking people, even leaving scorch marks on one of their friends. After worsened abuse, Donna called Ed and Lorraine Warren, the world-renowned psychic investigators. They learned that the doll was possessed by a demon that was trying to possess the girl. I know, it's confusing, right? It wasn't really Annabelle after all. But after that discovery, the doll was given to the Warrens to place in their occult museum in Connecticut, where it remains to this day. Number 7. The Haunted Wedding Dress. This haunted wedding dress is pretty strange. A young girl named Anna Baker fell in love with an ironworker in the mid-1800s. She came from a wealthy family, while he was a low-class laborer. They planned a wedding and she bought a dress, but there was just one problem. After discovering her relationship, her father forbade the wedding. She obliged but vowed to never marry anybody else and therefore spent her life angry, bitter, and alone until she died in 1914. The wedding dress, however, has been put on display at the old Baker mansion in her bedroom in an airtight glass case. It's now been observed moving by itself, which many would chalk up to the draft or air pressure, but the airtight case begs me to differ. Some believe that it's Anna inhabiting the dress, dancing at the wedding she never got to have. This wedding dress is surely cursed, and if not, it's still a sad thing for it to just be hanging there. I hope no one tries to wear it. Number 6. The Hands Resist Him painting. The Hands Resist Him was painted by Bill Stoneham in 1972 and is considered the world's most haunted piece of art. It has had several owners, each of which passed on a warning to the next owner. And so what was the warning? At nightfall, all the figures in the painting will move or disappear. The artist states that the doorway in the painting acts as a threshold between the world of fantasy and this world, while the hands represent alternate lives, and the doll is to guide the boy through this new world. In addition to the figures moving or disappearing, the painting also has some weird coincidences associated with it. For instance, the first art critic to review the painting and the first gallery owner to ever show the painting both died within a year of their first sight of it. Additionally, many people have reported immediately feeling weak or sick after viewing the painting. Now, I don't know how it happens, but I don't really want to get too close to that painting. Number 5. The DYBBUK Box. This wine cabinet was auctioned off on eBay to a man named Kevin Mannis in 2001. Immediately, he and the people around him began having nightmares. Since it was giving him nightmares, he gave it to his mother, who in turn had a stroke the day after he gave it to her. Every owner since has reported awful events upon receiving the cabinet. For instance, the last owner, Jason Haxton, developed a strange skin disease and other medical conditions after coming in possession of the cabinet. Once events like this started happening, the origins of the box were tracked back to a Holocaust survivor. It's believed to be possessed by a DYBBUK, which is a restless and malicious spirit in Jewish mythology. It's thought to be able to haunt and possess the living. So upon hearing this, Haxton and his local rabbis decided to hide the cabinet from the rest of the world so no one else has to suffer. You know what? Thank you, Mr. Haxton. We don't need another cursed object in the world. We still got 4 more on the list. Number 4. The Anguished Man painting. Yes, another painting. Sean Robinson, the current owner of the Anguished Man painting, used to spend hours as a child, fascinated and drawn towards the painting which used to lie hidden in his grandmother's basement. When she passed and Sean inherited it, he wanted to hang it on the wall. His wife highly despised the painting, and they had several arguments about it going up on the wall, but he hung it anyways. And that's when some bizarre paranormal events began to happen. Doors started cracking open in the middle of the night for no explained reason. Then there were blood-curdling screams that came from nowhere and certainly from no one in the family. And all of this was just the beginning. Every single family member had been having nightmares since the painting was hung, which would awake them suddenly in the middle of the night. These events caused them to search out the origin of the painting, and the history of the painting was even more disturbing than the paranormal activity. The original artist of the painting took his own life, but before that, he mixed his blood with the oil paint and painted the Anguished Man. Sean immediately took the painting down, but it still resides in his basement in Cumbria, England. And you know, that and money are really the only things stopping me from being an amazing art collector. Before we get to number 3, if you're new here, I just wanted to say hello. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and definitely let me know in the comments if you think any of this list reminds you of that movie Velvet Buzzsaw. Number 3, the Chair of Death. The Chair of Death is also known as Busby's stoop chair because it once belonged to a convicted murderer named Thomas Busby. Thomas Busby bludgeoned a local coin counterfeiter to death in his own home before burying him in the woods. He was the obvious suspect after an altercation about the victim's daughter. He was sentenced to be hanged, then his body dipped in tar and left in an iron cage at Crossroads. His final wishes before he was hanged was to have a meal at his favorite pub. After finishing his meal, he stood up and claimed, "May sudden death come to anyone who dare sit on my chair." Since this cursing, over 60 people have had untimely deaths, some of which happened right after sitting in the chair. One night, 2 airmen were daring each other to sit in the chair, and both of them sat in Busby's chair. But later that day, their car hit a tree and both men passed away on the way to the hospital. Though that isn't the only coincidence. One day during a lunch, a group of builders were daring a young man new to the gig to sit in the chair. Being the brave young kid, he did it. Later that day, he fell through a roof onto concrete and died instantly. After that, the owner, Tony Earnshaw, put the chair in the cellar to prevent anyone from tempting the curse any further. But even that didn't work. Eventually, the number of deaths just became too much for the local pub owner, so he donated it to the Thirst Museum in the UK, where it's been since 1972. Number 2, the Basano vase. The Basano vase was carved from silver by an Italian woman in the 1400s on her wedding night. That night, she was also discovered murdered, still clutching the vase. Afterwards, the vase was passed on through family members. However, each family member that possessed the vase died an untimely death. Finally, they hid the vase away until 1988, when the vase was rediscovered with a note that said, "Beware, this vase brings death." This, of course, continued the chain of deaths, with each owner refusing to believe the curse. Though it's not confirmed where the vase is now, it is thought to be buried in a lead coffin somewhere. Hopefully it's far, far away, because this story is just a little too coincidental. Number 1, Robert the Evil Doll. Oh great, another doll, and it's possibly just as frightening as Annabelle. His name is Robert the Evil Doll. Little on the nose there. Robert the Doll was gifted to Robert Otto in 1896 by a servant that practiced black magic and didn't particularly like the Ottos. The weirdness began when people started hearing the doll talk back. Then it started appearing in windows when no one was home and vandalizing rooms, breaking objects in the process. Of course, Robert received all the blame for the mess, even though he was openly terrified of the doll himself. Robert hid the doll away in his attic, but when he passed, another family member bought the house. They found the doll in the attic and they gave it to their daughter, who was just as terrified of the doll. She claimed the doll wanted to do terrible things and kill her. Today, the doll is on display in Key West and is still believed to be cursed. Legend has it that in order to take a picture with Robert the Doll, you have to ask permission first. And if you don't, you're cursed. Apparently, there have been some rule breakers and they want the curse lifted because surrounding the doll are letters asking for forgiveness and for the curse to be lifted. There's no word on how that's going for them though. And just for the record, no dolls for me for Christmas, okay? Thanks. Well, thanks for joining me. Apparently dolls and paintings are hotspots for curses. What do you think? Is it all a coincidence, or are they definitely cursed? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, be sure to subscribe before you go.